All right, everybody, welcome to episode 146 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I am with the co-host with the most, Drew at DR_PRA. Drew, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. One more night.
It is NFL kickoff eve. Oh, it's so exciting, man. We've been waiting since mid-February to have the games count again, and now they are going to count again. Your team, the Buffalo Bills, match up against the defending Super Bowl champs, Los Angeles Rams. I heard today someone say that this is the game that we should have seen in the Super Bowl. Maybe, maybe not, but maybe it's the game we see this year in the Super Bowl. Can't wait to go through all these games and find out who makes it there at the end. But we got to do what we do and start with the news. There's some pieces here that vary in interest from not that interesting to uh, pretty interesting. You can stop me if anything sounds like something you want to talk about. Panthers have placed quarterback Sam Darnold on the IR, out for 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain. So, just in case anyone thought that maybe it was still going to be a battle between Baker and Sam Darnold, and maybe if Baker started slow, Sam Darnold would be coming in. It's not going to happen. Sam Darnold is out for a few weeks, and pretty much Baker's show. So, that settles that. Uh, sort of a correction from last week. The Texans end up signing OJ Howard, not the Bengals. It seemed like the Bengals were there, then grabbed some tight ends off the waiver wire, and I guess they moved on. And OJ Howard is a Texan now, so take that for what you think it is. Patriots place their second round wide receiver Tyquan Thornton on the IR, so he's out for a minimum of 4 games. And I just want to make that clear. I've been using the IR term a lot. IR means at least 4 games. So anyone else you hear that's on the IR, it's going to be at least 4 games. Jalen Warren officially listed as the RB2 behind Najee Harris, and maybe more interesting than that, Kenny Pickett listed as quarterback 3 for those same Steelers. So interesting, obviously depth charts can change on a whim. So that doesn't mean that Kenny Pickett is going to be the QB3 all season, but he's starting off as the QB3. So we'll see how quickly he moves up to QB2.
Yeah, if you're in a couple of leagues with me and Jalen Warren's on waivers right now, make that bid strong. That's all I have to say.
He said, make that bid strong. Yeah, I honestly I don't care about any of the running backs in Pittsburgh besides Najee Harris. I mean, let's face it. If Najee gets injured, will the potential RB2 get a bunch of volume? Maybe, but that old line in Pittsburgh is scary, to say the least, and not good scary. Like, you want your offensive line to be more like scary, might get somebody hurt. So see what happens there. Commanders are placing Brian Robinson, running back, formerly of Alabama, on the reserve non-football injury list. So he will, according to this designation, he will only miss 4 games. That's not to say he's going to be playing week 5. I've definitely not a doctor, not going to, not even going to try to guess at that. But it's very interesting that that's the designation they decided to use. So who knows, man? I mean, this story kind of is a roller coaster. You hear about him getting shot, you get extremely worried. And now, well, for sure going to miss 4 weeks. Might be longer, might be more, but he might be ready week 5. I mean, it's crazy to even say he might be ready week 5.
Yeah.
Whether he is or he isn't is kind of irrelevant. Just that fact is kind of amazing to say. Another kind of amazing running back story, Jaguars running back James Robinson, who tore his Achilles in week 16 of last season, will be active and will play on Sunday versus those Commanders that we mentioned earlier. Like, that's nuts. I mean, yeah, I guess week 16 was what? Last week of December, first week of January. So you're about 9 months. But
yeah,
I mean,
it's
it used to be a full year before you even talked about these guys coming back. And now, they're getting on football fields and playing. Now, don't know what the snap, the snap count is going to be for him, what type of plays he's going to be in for, but I mean, that's kind of amazing. And then J.K. Dobbins. So this is kind of interesting, especially with the clip. I don't know if you've seen it of Lamar talking today. Earlier in the week, head coach Jim Harbaugh said Dobbins has a chance to play week 1 if he looks good in practice. And then Lamar today said in a post-practice press conference that he should be good in a couple of weeks. Now, I understand Lamar doesn't have a medical degree either, but a very interesting choice of words. So if you have J.K. Dobbins, I have him, I think, in just one spot, maybe 2 spots. You're going to have to keep your ears peeled until game time because some conflicting reports. And then last but not least, this happened, the day after last week's episode, but Broncos and Russell Wilson reach an agreement, 5 years, $245 million contract extension that includes $165 million guaranteed. Good for us. I mean, good for anybody who gets paid. I don't care who they are, man. Get paid. Playing football is a rough business, and the fact that you can make that much money off of it, I'm all about it. So
let's ride.
Let's ride, man. Let's do it. We got to round ourselves into regular season form now. This is officially the last off-season episode of 2022. I don't know how that makes you feel, Drew, but
I'm excited.
It is. It's exciting. Yeah, don't get me wrong. We have fun during the off season. We do our thing, but like, this is it. This is where we shine. So let's get into the timeline. This first one is from a friend of the show, that network brother, Rocky, trade addict at Dynasty FF Addict. So at Tacit Assassin 13, the incomparable Zach Reed asked this question for trade addicts, and he wants to know how we would answer it. So, little trade addicts and fantasy timeline crossover. If you could see into the future and know how any one player's 2022 season turns out, who would it be? So, Drew, I want you to go into your crystal ball, and I want you to tell me who do you want? What knowledge would you want about one player in the 2022 season?
Ooh. I would probably say the first one that comes to mind is Jalen Hurts. He's a guy that a lot of people have been pretty polarized around. People who have him, I think, are not trading him very cheaply, and people who want him aren't willing to pay up because of the risk of this year. I think I know Rocky's stance pretty well, and I'm pretty in line with his, which is I think he's good enough and he has a chance to improve enough this year, even if the Eagles move on after this season. I have a good feeling that he'll land somewhere else. Consistency for quarterbacks is huge, though, so I would love to know, is he going to take the step forward as a passer? Will he get them to the playoffs, win the division, and basically get a stronghold on that position moving forward? Or is he going to struggle and probably be just good enough to maybe get another shot to compete next year? And is he a guy that I should be taking value that I can get now? So he's the first one that comes to mind. I know there's a couple of others that I'm sure we'll bring up, but how about you? Where do you go first?
All right. So first of all, I got 2 points to make off of what you just said. First of all, I'm mad at you because we don't talk about this beforehand, but you stole my guy. So thanks a lot. And
Great
second
minds,
of all,
and then there's ours.
yeah, none of ours. I was actually stunned because when you said you fell in line with Rocky, I thought you were going to mention that Jalen Hurts is the second coming of your quarterback, Josh Allen. So I thought that's where you were headed with that. Rocky made that revelation during the offseason. That's why we love offseason episodes, because Rocky can mention that Jalen Hurts will be Josh Allen. But since you stole mine, I have to pivot, and pivoting is fine. We gotta do it, right? In the fantasy game, you gotta pivot, and I'm going to pivot to another NFC East team. Wide receiver C.D. Lamb. Listen, we're drafting him high this year. He's supposed to be a stone cold stud. He's supposed to get like 250 targets, 1,800 yards on 130 receptions and 14 touchdowns. That's what some people think. And I want to know if that hype is true. Can CeeDee Lamb vault himself into that upper echelon of wide receiver? Can he put himself among the Justin Jeffersons, the Jamar Chases, kind of like what Cooper Kupp did last year, except on a much bigger scale, because we were drafting Cooper Kupp a lot lower than we're drafting CeeDee Lamb this year. So can he make that jump? Because if I have that knowledge now, I know whether maybe I need to sell because he's a fine QB, or excuse me, not QB, wide receiver 12, 13, 14, 15, which, I mean, if you're wide receiver 15, it's still pretty good, but it's not wide receiver 3. It's not wide receiver 4. Or is he really that dude? Is he top 5, lock him in, young guy who's going to be there with, like I said earlier, Jefferson and Chase for the next, 5 years? So we both kept it in the NFC East, a couple different positions there, but I think two guys that have a lot on their shoulders, a lot of pressure. But we've seen the flashes from both athletes. Now, can they put it together for an entire season and catapult themselves into the top level at their respective positions? So before we slide to the next one, let's hit this question here from our man, Recovering Ridley Truther. Shout out, yo fellas, with crunch time coming, who's one player you could trade for last minute? This is a general 12-team Superflex PPR tight end premium league. So maybe not that general of a league if you think about the overarching way that fantasy is played right now, but probably a lot of the leagues that you and I play in. So Drew, who's that guy? Who's the last minute guy that you go, let me try to slide him on my team real quick?
Well, I'll throw a couple that I've been able to move onto my teams this past week. In one league, we're hurrying a little bit for wide receiver depth. I think we're looking at Thielen and Cooks as our top two wide receivers right now, and it's a start three. So we're looking at dropping off from that to like Quez Watkins, I think. So we made a trade and we sent Khalil Herbert for Jarvis Landry this last week to a team that wants to try to go younger. So I think Landry will continue to do what he does, which is get a fair amount of targets, fair amount of catches. May not get a ton of touchdowns, but he'll be involved. And for PPR, I will take that floor at my wide receiver 2 or 3, depending on how you rank those guys. And then another one is made a pretty strong move in a team that I'm contending in for Travis Kelce in a league. Was able to move Dalton Schultz, Davis Mills, and I think a 24 second, and got Travis Kelce for this year. And we'll see, where that goes after this year. But a strong team, probably a clear number 2 or number 3 team. There's one other team in the league that is just stacked. Has Kyler and Burrow, has I forget who he has at running back, but has Jefferson and a couple of other really good. I think he has Lamb and another really good young wide receiver or two. So really just felt like we needed to go top heavy and try to throw in. So we've got Andrews and Kelce now in this tight end premium league to go with Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, Brandon Cooks, and Hollywood. So that's something, a couple of old guys, I guess, is kind of the theme. So looking at some of these veterans that maybe you can get a little bit cheaper. People are excited to see what some of these young guys are ready to do. I don't know that you're going to get any of these rookies any cheaper than you would have been able to trade for them in your draft. So, Jameson Williams is certainly a guy that I'd love to go and see if I can make another run at for some teams. He's on IR. You want to compete. Maybe I can flip a guy that'll score you some points early on. But I'm taking shots at maybe him who's injured for a little bit. Maybe Hopkins, who's also older and suspended. So as people are trying to set lineups, they start looking at those projections. Maybe get a desperate partner or two who's willing to make an ill-advised trade to see their projections bump up 3 or 4 points this week heading into week 1.
I like that. I got one. He will be playing tomorrow. So if you want to do this, you should probably, get on that pretty quickly. Isaiah McKenzie. Listen, we all know about Stephon Diggs. He's that dude. Gabe Davis. Is he?
Also that dude. Also that dude.
Statistics say he's not that dude. But they cleared the deck for Gabe Davis. But what if I'm right for once and Drew's wrong? It doesn't happen that often. But what if Gabe Davis ain't that dude? Isaiah McKenzie time. I think if Gabe Davis can't put it together, I think you're going to see Isaiah McKenzie elevate to that wide receiver too. And here's the best part about getting Isaiah McKenzie. He ain't going to cost you a lot. You don't need no 23 first to get Isaiah McKenzie. You don't need a big-time player to get Isaiah McKenzie. Probably get him, what do you think, Drew? A third? I think a third snags Isaiah McKenzie from a team?
I would think so, unless somebody's really in tune with what's going on in Twitter universe here. If you're trying to make something late happen, yeah, I think you got Crowder there. Knox just got extended. People are hearing about Gabe Davis, so yeah. I mean, I love Isaiah McKenzie as a cheap dart throw guy that maybe you have to throw him in for a bye week. You got a bunch of people on bye week 9, week 14, but yeah, I mean, anything that you can do to get an electric player that's tied to Josh Allen, why wouldn't you? And if it all costs you a third, or maybe it's who knows? I mean, I would start with a fourth and just see, we're getting a roster cut downs right. I know that's been a lot of trade frenzy in some leagues that I've been in. People that don't want to cut a guy because they, feel like he's still valuable. So, hey, I've got roster space on my team. I'll spend the fab if you drop him, but I'd rather just make it easy. Take a fourth. Cool. And even then, get creative. Some of these leagues now, I think more commissioners are allowing for fab to be traded too. So maybe you throw a couple dollars of fab in with the 4th round pick. And that way, hey, if you need to have the edge on picking somebody up in a couple of weeks, that gives that other manager a couple extra dollars as a buffer. So get creative with it. But yeah, McKenzie should be a solid target to go after. I like that one.
Yeah, so those are the dudes that I think will. You had a couple, Drew. There's one guy I think that could possibly kind of not cost you a lot, and maybe like you said, you know, especially if you're playing in, a lot of the leagues I'm starting to join now are 2 flex spot, 3 flex spot. Not only are you starting maybe 2 or 3 wide receivers, but you have 2 or 3 additional flex spots that you need to get into. And if McKenzie becomes that wide receiver too, I think he fills in one of those spots perfectly. So, um, great question, Ridley Truther. We got another one here from Dark Den Dan. Hey guys, need some help. Marquise Hollywood Brown versus Kansas City, or Allen Robinson versus Buffalo, half point PPR. So I think Buffalo has a decent secondary. Trey White is hurt, right?
Yeah, he's not back till at least week 5.
To at least week 5. So that's a big blow to the secondary. So Allen Robinson has been great his entire career except for last year. Did he fall off the cliff, or was it more that Matt Nagy just didn't know what the hell he was doing? We'll find out this year with Sean McVay, a head coach, and that offense that, can put points on anybody. But until I see a little bit from Allen Robinson, I got to go with Hollywood here. We think Kansas City is going to be able to score points at a pretty decent clip. Arizona's defense is not anything that scares teams. They're competent, but they're not, elite. And Hollywood is the dude. Hollywood is the number one until D-Hop gets back from that 6-week suspension for PEDs. So I feel like Hollywood is going to get a lot of targets. I think we're still waiting on some word about Zach Ertz, right? We're kind of unsure if he's going to be able to play or not. And what does that leave? Rondell Moore? All right, we haven't seen it out of him yet. AJ Green? I mean, maybe, but are you really banking your money on AJ Green stealing a ton of targets from Hollywood? Probably not. So, I think Hollywood is going to be Hollywood in that first game against Kansas City, where I think there'll be a lot of points on the board. So give me Hollywood. Drew, what do you think? You got Marquise Brown, or do you have Allen Robinson in this map here?
Yeah, I'm with Hollywood. I'm actually just trying to look up the line on a couple of these games. So it looks like over-under is 52 for Buffalo and LA. I would think that the KC and Arizona game is 53.5. So go after the points there. You're looking at Arizona, who routinely runs the most plays, pass first offense. I realize you have 2 wide receivers in new systems with new quarterbacks. I know there's some, I don't know what the whispers are with Stafford's shoulder or his elbow right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you're looking at a couple of, I think the Buffalo LA game could be more of a defensive struggle. It's the first week of the season, and that opening Thursday night game is always a little bit of people feeling each other out. So if I had to put money on Thursday night, I'd probably bet the under. I assume it's like a 27-21, maybe 27-24 kind of a game. So I'll take Hollywood, and all he needs is one or two big plays, and he can burn you for a 60-yard touchdown real quick, and probably double up Allen Robinson. I think Robinson could get a fair number of targets tomorrow night. It'll come down to the quality of those targets, and then how many of them he actually catches.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. So we went 2 for 2 on that one. It's Hollywood. Put them in your lineup and have fun. All right, let's get back to the timeline. It was good doing the chat questions, but we got this one here from Dan Turner at Eagle Dan FF. How much playing time do you anticipate Rachaad White to have for Tampa Bay this year? So Rachaad White, 2022 draft pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What do you think, Drew? How much playing time do you see for Rachaad White?
Man, I am not real good at projecting season long, and I don't. That's not something that I've really spent much time looking at. I think just thematically knowing that Brady trusts his guys, unless Rachaad White really showed up in training camp this offseason and was super strong in pass protection, didn't drop a rep that he had with Brady, I think he'll struggle to have a lot of meaningful touches unless Fournette gets injured or something like that happens. I think if Fournette's relatively healthy, he dominates most of that backfield, and Rachaad White might be a bye-week flex play if he can see the field a little bit, if he can get in some passing downs and stuff. But I don't expect him to be anywhere near splitting time in a meaningful way, at least not for quite a few weeks, from what I can tell anyways. But again, there might be some stuff that beat writers have or that's coming out of training camp that I'm not up to speed with there. I know he said originally when he got drafted, his goal was to compete for and win the starting job, but I expect every young Buck to say that coming out of the draft.
Yeah, so this is interesting to me because this is a guy that I've kind of been looking at this offseason because Tampa Bay has been an interesting team. Their head coach moves to a front office position. They promote their defensive coordinator to head coach. Then you have 3 offensive linemen get hurt. 3 starting offensive linemen get hurt. Tom Brady went on vacation kind of during the middle of training camp. Gronk's not back. Obviously, we're not going to see Antonio Brown for this team. They bring in Russell Gage and Julio Jones. So kind of a lot of movement, and it's kind of, all right, what is this team going to be? Because obviously Bruce Arians with kind of the, big time passing game, what is Todd Bowles? Is Todd Bowles just going to keep that offensive playbook? Byron Leftwich is still there as offensive coordinator. So is he kind of just in charge of running the offense while Todd Bowles is the head coach and looking after the defense? We're not really sure. So a lot of question marks. So we can't just say, well, look at how Leonard Fournette was used last year. He's going to be used the same way this year, because if they keep the same playbook, yeah, all right, I can see that. But what if they don't? What if the injuries on the offensive line lead to Tom Brady getting hit a little bit more often than they would like? Do they resort more to the running game? Are they trying to get quick hitters out of the backfield? I think Rachaad White might see more time than we've been talking about. Maybe a guy again that you, as recovering Ridley Truther had said, in his previous question, maybe it's one of those small guys that you get, probably don't have to pay a lot, and just see if Tampa Bay is a high-powered offense again. You could see some more of him than you're thinking. So he's definitely a wild card. This is not a for sure lock it down. Rashad White is going to just be RB20 this year. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I think on an offense like Tampa Bay, he could be a little bit more a part of it than we're thinking right now. So
I think most people spend a second on him in rookie drafts this year. Do you think you get him for a third at this point? Or are you just saying you're willing to maybe take a future second and throw it down to get him on your team now?
I don't know if I go necessarily future second, but I kind of look for a player. Who are we looking at here?
Would you give a Jarvis Landry to get him on your team?
Oh yeah, you can have Jarvis Landry.
Okay.
I'm not worried about the.
Would you give Gabe Davis to get him on your team?
Would I? If nothing else existed, yes, but I know Gabe Davis is more valuable than Rashad White, so no. But only because I know the value of Gabe Davis, not necessarily because I think that Gabe Davis is, going to be a great player and can't trade him for a wild card like.
What's the gap between McKenzie and Rashad White for you?
That's probably like, I know I spent. Well, if I'm trying to get him, I'm trying to do that straight up and seeing what someone says. They probably say no.
Yeah.
But we're on Twitter all the time. We see crazy deals made.
It happens.
All the time. So if I get hey, like, I need a little bit more, then I try like McKenzie and a third and say, what do you think now? And see if that gets it done.
Okay. What about a Tyler Boyd?
No, and that's more of a me thing. That probably is not necessarily a value thing, but I like having Tyler Boyd on teams because if anything happens to either Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, I think Tyler Boyd steps in there and he becomes like an automatic flex play every week.
Mm-hmm.
He becomes, if you're starting if you're starting 3 wide receivers, he becomes your wide receiver 3. So in his current form, he's kind of like a Pokemon, He's kind of that base level, and you're like, all right, I got to do some things to level this dude up. And the injury, unfortunately, to either one of those guys would be the level up where you go, okay, like that could, make him into a bigger, badder version of himself. All right. This is another one from Recovering Ridley Truther. Chatty Dubs has been a little tough. A lot of managers spent a mid to early second in rookie drafts and want multiple picks back. In my recent experience, spam offering. LOL.
Yeah, he's been going after Rashad, it sounds like. And yeah, that's where people are dug in on what they paid and trying to get that value back. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully maybe Fournette starts off strong and that's an opportunity. If there's a little dip for that first few weeks, if you want to try to package it. And I think you're right, Josh. You have to look at the player values. What does that team need more than probably just a straight picks based on what people used for him in rookie drafts? But yeah, I certainly don't mind him. He was, I think, a top 3 or 4 running back for me this year coming out of the draft. So it's just that, what's the spectrum of that top 4? It's not like they're all concentrated at the top like a couple years ago with JT and Swift and Dobbins. So interesting guy to go after. I think you'll have to let some managers get past the first couple weeks here, maybe see him only get, 2 or 3 touches a game and then let them kind of start to self-discover that maybe he's not worth a future second anymore.
Right. Exactly. All right. before we go on, we got something new this year, man. Uh, we are lucky enough to be partnering with BetUS, and we got a little code. We're going to put that in the description of of this that you're seeing right now on YouTube and on the podcast episode itself, because we could scroll it on the bottom of the screen, but there's a lot of letters and numbers, and it's just not a good media for that. So, but we are going to put it there. Listen, BetUS has got everything. Obviously, we talk football because we love football. They got baseball. They got basketball. They got UFC. Pretty much, if you can bet on it, they got it. So every week, we're going to go with our game of the week, game we think you guys should bet. And then do what you want with the information. But do it at BetUS. Promise you, you're not going to be disappointed. And let's have a good time with this. So, Drew, you and I were talking about what game we potentially want to put on here, and you said Patriots Dolphins. I bet US Dolphins -3.5. Pretty close game, right? Looks like, we're still believing that our man, Coach Bill Belichick, can keep it close. He's got the Mac attack. They got former Miami Dolphin Devante Parker in the house. But we're telling you right now, Drew and I agree to put that money on the Dolphins. We're gonna read some stats that Drew and I compiled. New England is only 8-9. 8 wins, 9 losses in the last 17 games against the Dolphins, including losses in the last 3 games. Those last 3 games headed up by Tua, who was 3-0 against said New England Patriots all time. New England is 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 games overall. They're also 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 games against the AFC. So this is a team, they don't like covering that spread. They don't like it. Miami, on the other hand, guess what they do against the spread? 7-3-1 against the spread in their last 11 divisional games. Drew, you're an AFC mastermind. Dolphins, Patriots. That'd be one of those divisional games, right?
That's one of them.
That's one of them. All right, so we know what Miami does in those divisional games. Miami, also the home team. You gotta figure, all right, what are they? 3-3, 2-4 at home. Nah, man. 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 home games. So not only do they take it to the Patriots, they take it to other teams in the AFC, or in the AFC East, excuse me, and they take it to teams at home against the spread. 3.5. It looks nice. They got Tyreek. They got the new offensive mastermind, Mike McDaniel. Ooh. Put your money on the Dolphins. And guess what? What we're going to do, we want more people in the Fantasy Timeline chat. We have a bunch of great people, but we want more. We want people talking football, trades, draft strategies, all that stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop a bonus pick just for the Timeline chat. We want to get them winning money too. So if you want to be part of the Timeline chat, it's easy. Just hit me up, hit Drew up, hit up at the show handle at Fantasy Timeline. Say, hey, I want to be in that Timeline chat. And you'll be in there. And then you get the extra pick every week that we're not giving to anybody else. I feel like that's a good deal. And like I said, our link will be in the description of the pod and the description of this YouTube video. Now, back to the show. All right, so this next one here is from JRC at Viking Power 72. Dynasty, 1 quarterback, PPR 10 team. Who is the better dynasty asset? Eagles wide receiver, Devante Smith, or Tennessee Titans wide receiver, Treylon Burks? Drew, who do you love?
Man, this is a tough one. Man, you've got a guy that just absolutely dominated at Alabama. You've got a guy that made everybody in the SEC look like they were middle schoolers at Arkansas. I would probably have to lean toward Devante Smith. I've seen him do it for a year. He's back with the same quarterback. Again, going back to the beginning, whatever you believe Hurts will do this year or won't do as a passer, that would probably skew this a little bit. I know Treylon Burks is supposed to be a complete receiver. The guy is, I think, built really well for the position. Tennessee believes him enough to ship AJ Brown off so they can draft this guy right afterwards. So I don't know that you have a bad choice between the two. If one will get you the other plus a little bit, I would do that. That's kind of the bottom line.
That's the bottom line. So you're on the Smith side here. I just want to make sure that we got that.
Yep. If they're both, back to back and I'm drafting in a startup, I would take Smith before Burks.
I'm with you 100%. It's going to be Devonta Smith for me as well. I think the offense in Philadelphia is better than the offense we have in Tennessee. I think Devonta Smith is the better player. That's kind of a double whammy against Treylon Burks. Don't get me wrong, I think Treylon Burks is very good, but I would not be shocked if Devonta Smith was the number 1 receiver on the Eagles this year. And I know that's kind of blasphemy in the fantasy community, but we know that Smith and Hurts kind of have that connection. They have that chemistry. We're going to see. The training camp highlights have looked amazing between Hurts and A.J. Brown, but let's see what happens when defenses are playing for real. Defenses are playing to stop the Eagles' offense. Let's see if the chemistry holds. I'm not too sure. I liked what I saw from Smith last year, and I think he just he moves on and he moves up. So that's 2 for 2, and I actually put this on there because it was close, but Drew, we voted for the losing side of this, 55% to 45%. So maybe it's time. If you have Treylon Burks somewhere and you feel like we do, maybe it's time to try. I mean, if someone proposed a trade with these two guys, which side do you feel like you would need to add something to in order to even out, or do you think this is kind of a straight up trade that you wouldn't mind making? And I know we don't usually like position for position straight up trades, but
if I have Burks and I've got a decent chance, it looks like, of adding maybe a third to Smith, I'll take the extra piece on top. Sure. I mean, it wouldn't take much, third, fourth, and then I'll figure out how to use that piece down the road and sweeten another deal for myself. So based on the poll, I think you would need a little bit extra. Or again, maybe this is one of those you get a 2 for 1, right? I'll give you Treylon Burks, you give me Devonta Smith and Isaiah McKenzie.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, I mean, this is someone if I had Traylon Burks and the offer was made to me, Devonta Smith for Traylon Burks. I mean, I always get a little greedy. I'm like you. I think I would try to add a third um to it, but if they were like, I can only do this deal straight up, I would do that deal straight up. I would not mind trading my Traylon Burks and getting Devonta Smith in return. Um, I think Devonta Smith was the better prospect, and I think he's in the better system. So why not get the best of both worlds there? Um, I like it. I like when we agree, man. We've we pretty much. I mean, we've had a lot of. I think we've had a lot of philosophical questions, but I like that we agree on the question, the yes or no question here. This next one here is from Daddy, or excuse me, name at Daddy FFL. There's a dynasty league here. Would you want Elijah Moore or George Pickens and Tony Pollard?
Mm, man, that's tough. I love Elijah Moore, so if it took Pickens and Pollard to get there, I'd probably do that.
So you're going with the Elijah Moore side here.
Yeah, I'll take Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I'm taking the Elijah Moore side too. I know we all love George Pickens, but what's his best case scenario? He's wide receiver 2 on the Steelers. We've kind of seen that from Chase Claypool. None of us are running out and kicking down the doors to add Chase Claypool to our team. So, you know, 900 yards and 6 touchdowns, does that get you like super excited? Not really. Um, and Tony Pollard is a nice piece, and I even saw something come out today that Tony Pollard is going to see more slot snaps. All right, I feel like I hear that every year. I feel like I hear he's going to have more of a role in the run game, and Dallas does what Dallas does, and they let Zeke plod, and they let Tony Pollard sit on the bench for most of the game. So yeah, I'm taking those two. It was interesting because this one was a little bit wider of a gap. 59% Pickens and Pollard side, while Elijah Moore only got 41%, which surprised the heck out of me. But like we said earlier, name pivoted. Looks like he didn't do this deal, but he ended up doing A-Rob and Tony Pollard for Terry McLaurin. So what do you think about that, Drew? A-Rob, maybe a little bit of a step up from Pickens and still keeping Pollard in there, but getting Terry McLaurin.
I would take A-Rob and Pollard at that point. I think A-Rob and McLaurin could be wide receiver 22 and 26 by the end of the season, depending on how things shake out. So I would be more inclined to take the guy that's with Stafford, has Kupp pulling some coverage away. I think A-Rob's quality will show out in the long run here. And then, yeah, sure, I'll take the depth piece for Pollard. So I would probably pivot and go to the package for what he ultimately did here.
See, I gotta go with Terry McLaurin. We don't know what A-Rob is. And what if A-Rob is just a dressed up Robert Woods in this offense? A guy that's nice to have around, but you never you'll like him on your team, but you're never like, God, definitely am going to get him in my lineup this week. What if that's just the role of the wide receiver 2 in the LA offense, where it's like Cooper Kupp is going to be that dude. He's having breakfast with Matt Stafford all the time. They're buds. They hang out. And the number 2 guy is just, hey, nice to be there. And he's going to get his. And then Tony Pollard, like I said, I love Tony Pollard. I really do. I wish Dallas would use him more. But they don't. They refuse for whatever reason to use Tony Pollard more. So Terry McLaurin has been top 15 every year since he's been in the league. Does that change this year? Probably not. I mean, we can't say the quarterback situation is going to be worse than last year. I mean, it may not be that much better, but it's gonna be slightly better than a half of Ryan Fitzpatrick and then the rest of the season of Taylor Heineke. I mean, Carson Wentz was QB 14, 15 last year? I mean, so he's competent. He's good enough.
Yeah, assuming FedEx Field doesn't eat his leg.
I don't know how someone's so rich.
That whole franchise just concerns me. So yeah, I don't know. I have McLaurin. I think I have McLaurin in our sleeper league, and I'm ready to go out and if I can get A-Rob and Pollard and maybe add a third to it, I'm tempted now.
Hey, guess what? You know who has both A-Rob and Tony Pollard in that sleeper league?
No, you don't.
I'll put 100 on it that I do.
No, you don't.
I'll put 100 on it that I do.
Let's see here. Real Fantasy TL.
Who's got them boys?
Tony Pollard.
Oh,
you know what? You were mentioning like Robert Woods, just a nice guy to have.
Yeah, because I traded for Robert Woods. I traded the Phantom of Dawson Knox and I think like J.D. McKissick to get Robert Woods. But of course, I traded him after his like breakout game, and then he got hurt the next game. So then I ended up not having him anyway. But that was fine to get off of Dawson Knox. I didn't care about that. So
okay.
Yeah, I got both of them, don't I?
Yes, you do.
Listen, you can add a third to it, like you said, and we can. I'm fine with getting Terry McLaurin in a third for A-Rob and Tony Pollard.
Oh no, I was saying add a third to the package.
We're not gonna do that. Come on, man. You just told the whole world you're fine with it. Told the whole world that you were fine with that deal.
Yeah, I mean, if you're telling me,
I'm fine with it. You can have them boys.
I might have to go and see who's got Pickens.
What you gonna do? You're gonna try to get Pickens and Pollard? Well, you can't get Pickens and Pollard.
Can't get both of them. Yeah.
So, but there you go. Maybe names.
There's deals to be had.
Spurned a deal between Drew and I. So I'll send it to you either tonight or tomorrow morning. Let you look at it a little bit and see what you think. All right, here. This next one is from Patrick Pucci at Patrick Pucci 2. James Cook. Oh man, I feel like we've had a lot of Bills references in this episode.
You brought him up.
James Cook. Well, this is not my question. Patrick Pucci is not my burner. I read what the people write. James Cook or Breece Hall in fantasy football redraft. So let's put the redraft hat on. And what do we got?
That should be Brees Hall pretty easily for me.
And this is coming from a Buffalo Bills fan. So you know he's giving his honest, heartfelt answer. Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's Brees Hall. I understand, you know, preseason, especially the last game or two, wasn't awe-inspiring. The first week matchup against the Baltimore Ravens, also not awe-inspiring. But come on, this was the first running back taken off the board. He is the person that we spent all offseason since the middle of February saying this guy is the 101 in this draft class. He could do everything. You know, people were saying that Brees Hall is going to be a top 12 running back in startup drafts next year, blah, blah, blah. We can't let a couple of preseason games and, you know, Michael Carter just all of a sudden push us off of, you know, a player that we spent months saying was extremely talented. So I'm with you. Obviously, I will be I'll be transparent here. I have never been high on James Cook, so that's another reason why I'm kind of like, yeah, give me the guy that you know I watched and was like, yeah, this guy is good. As opposed to a guy that is in a very good offense. Don't get me wrong, Bills, very good offense. But I just, I think Devin Singletary is going to be around more than we want to give him credit for. It looks like Zach Moss maybe made a mini resurgence during camp. I mean, I heard a lot of good reports about Zach Moss from the coaching staff in Buffalo. So if this turns into a three-headed monster, I mean, it could get messy for all, but that means it's not good for James Cook either. No. So give me Brees. I know the offense is definitely not going to – the Jets are not going to be as good on offense as the Bills are, but I think it's a better talent. So like we always say, talent over the scenery. So Patrick, I hope that helps. Get yourself some Brees and be happy. Be happy that you did it. Last one, and then we're out of here, man. Can you believe it? I can't believe this is the last question of the 2022 offseason.
Boy.
Let's get into it. He said, my boy. This is Jay at Dynasty_Moose. Dynasty 10-team half-point PPR Superflex. Drew's love. No, not Tua. We're talking about Gabe Davis. And everyone's love, George Pickens, or DK Metcalf. And everyone's hate, I think, Antonio Gibson. So I'll say that one more time. Gabe Davis and George Pickens, or DK Metcalf and Antonio Gibson. Drew, it's got a bill in it. What side are you going to pick?
Yeah, I think I have to go on the Metcalf Gibson side. It looks like Gibson should be handling the majority of the workload for better or worse for the first few weeks here. Yeah, definitely not my favorite running back, but he's a starting running back in the NFL who should have a decent amount of volume. And then DK, who I think is criminally underrated right now, based on his current quarterback situation, losing Russ, etc. But you're looking at a couple of guys, I think Gabe Davis is better than a lot of people give him credit for. I think he'll continue to, even if it's not huge leaps and bounds, I think he'll continue to get better and keep a pretty meaningful part of that offense. And Pickens, I don't know, the Steelers cycle through wide receivers. They produce good wide receivers. They move good wide receivers on. I will take I'll take my payout on George Pickens if I got him early second round this year, and I can get, and again, I'm sure you'll share kind of where the poll landed here. So it looks like you should be able to get some extra on top. But if I'm looking at building for the future, I'll take DK Metcalf. If he's in a 10 team, he's probably my wide receiver 2 or 3 based on how people are feeling about him. Okay. And running backs are running backs. So if you can get some productivity out of Gibson here, again, no trade is your final trade. So maybe you find a team that wants him after you. But, as of today, when I'm getting ready to set lineups and I want to know that I've got a good chance to win, I want DK in my lineup more than I want Gabe Davis or George Pickens in my lineup right now. And then having a starting running back as either my RB2 or flex in Gibson feels pretty good. So that's where I am. Where are you, Josh?
I'm with you. And normally I do my little side of the story and then give the poll results. So I'm going to do it in a little bit different order, though. The Gabe Davis and George Pickens side got 66%.
Almost 2-1 here.
What? Over Metcalf? I get we don't like Gibson, and that's fine. Listen, it looked like before the tragedy of Brian Robinson happened, it looked like Brian Robinson was going to take that starting job. That's what it looked like. So I get being worried about Antonio Gibson, but Antonio Gibson was a top 15 running back last year. So why can't we, at least for 5 weeks, expect him to be a top 15 back again? And really, we're obviously, in Dynasty, we have to look forward and try to predict things, but trying to predict Brian Robinson coming back week 5, like that's a lot. I mean, unless you're a medical professional and you've seen reports and you've kind of seen, especially that bullet around his knee, he- you know, obviously, the reports came out, kind of missed all the major structures, but I mean, you still got shot twice. And we're just like, yeah, he'll be ready for week 5. No problem. All right. If you have that level of confidence, you are a better human than I am because can't I can't do it. I can't just be like, yeah, he's gonna be ready week 5, no doubt about it. What if it's week 8? He's not ready to week 8 or week 9. And Antonio Gibson is a top 15 fantasy running back. Does Ron Rivera just go, hey, Antonio Gibson has been pretty good. We're just going to sit him now because Brian Robinson's back? And does Brian Robinson come back and it's just ready? Because, we talk about things like football shape, being in football shape all the time, right? Got to be in football shape. But I can't believe someone who's been shot twice is just out there running drills and, he's recovering right now, which by the way is what he should be doing. He should just be worrying about his health right now as a human being, not as a football player, none of that. Just getting healthy, doing everything that, his doctors are telling him to do so that he can just have that normal quality of life. And the normal quality of life and football shape normally aren't the same thing. So what if he's able to go week 5, but he's not in football shape? Does that mean Antonio Gibson gets 2 more weeks? Like, there's too many, and this is what I'm trying to say, a long-winded way of trying to say, there's too many variables in it to just say, week 5, Brian Robinson's back, he takes over, all said and done, and Antonio Gibson is, fielding punts. We don't know. But DK Metcalf, I get it. The quarterback situation in Seattle is garbage. It's Geno Smith or Drew Lock. Yikes. The fantasy timeline, Drew, might be a better quarterback than Drew Lock. I've seen Drew Lock play professional football. It's not good. But even if you're not, which you might be.
Might be a better kicker. That's about it.
Oh, man. I know you're a better kicker. I've seen that in action. I feel like if Drew Lock decided to switch to kicker, he would just be so flagrant with the ball. It would spray everywhere. There would be no regard for humans behind the goalposts. It would be messy. So I know you got him in that regard. But he's still DK Metcalf. He's still a physical monster. And he was pretty good with Geno Smith in the 3 games he played last year. Like, people forget that. People think that DK Metcalf averaged like 5 fantasy points a game with Geno Smith, and that wasn't the case. And guess what? If that team is bad, they're probably drafting a quarterback with the top 10 pick they get. So now all of a sudden we're fading DK Metcalf because it's Geno Smith and Drew Lock. And then all of a sudden CJ Stroud or Bryce Young or Will Levis is in Seattle. And now we're trying to scoop them up again, but we can't because now DK Metcalf, who is still a monster, now has a quarterback that we can kind of respect again. And you're never getting the lowball prices that you might be getting right now. So it baffles me that it's 66-34, but give me Metcalf, give me Gibson. This just means that you can get Metcalf, Gibson, and something else, and probably a pretty significant something else, if this is what the poll is. And all you have to give up is Gabe Davis and George Pickens.
What do you think realistically you get back?
I'm going for like one of them 20-23 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me with a poll like that we're not even close, just offering that 2 for the other 2.
Yeah.
So,
this is your chance if you're thinking about earlier, you want to get a Rachaad White back and take a shot there.
Or do this deal. Go Davis, Pickens, and a 23 second for Metcalf, Gibson, and a 23 first. I mean, it sounds crazy coming out of my mouth. And like when I say it, I don't believe that anyone would ever accept it. But this poll is saying something different.
Yep.
So I can't just say, well, the way I value players is correct and the way everyone else values players are wrong. I mean, I do believe in my values more than other people's values, but obviously a lot of other people believe that these guys are more valuable and I need to exploit that. So, just ask for an extra second or, add a second to your side and ask for the first back. It's stuff like that, and I'll be very curious to see next year, because I think DK Metcalf has been faded and maybe has been traded in some spots for some low ball offers. I wonder what we look at next year if, Geno Smith is decent, which, I mean, I don't think he'll be decent enough to, like, keep the job. But, will he be decent enough to maybe get him out of the top 10? I don't even know if that's possible. But, if they're in the top 10, they're for sure taking a quarterback. And if they're, like, on the fringe, if they're at, like, 10 and they don't think any of those guys are going to be there, they still have Denver's first. So let's not forget that they can package some picks and move on up into the territory where they can grab a quarterback. So it'll be very fun. Here we go. One last one on the way out from Schumann 006. This is for you, Drew. Fun question. If you could only keep one, bourbon for fantasy football, which would you choose?
This, in fact, is not a fun question for me. Well, I have. I was about to say, I think I have a better shot of winning money with fantasy football or making out more there, but honestly, the secondary market for the right bourbons is pretty lucrative. So I I think I have to stick with bourbon. That is, I think there are enough ways to be tangentially involved with fantasy football if I don't have my own teams. I mean, if you're talking about like all together, never get to hang out with Josh and the folks in the DAP network, never get to go back to Canton and hang out with some of the folks there. Man, that would make it a lot more difficult. But even there, I mean, bourbon brought us together, so that's a really tough question. That's not one that I want to answer, but man, you're making it hard here, Shuey. Can I like switch for a year at a time? Like give up bourbon for a year, play fantasy football for a year, give up fantasy football, drink bourbon. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. It's I don't know if anybody's a Friends fan, but it's one of those like Joey's given that question. Would you rather give up sex or food? It's like he wants wants girls on bread. I want fantasy football in a bourbon themed league. That's what I want.
There you go, man. There you go. I'm not a bourbon drinker, but I know, Drew, that you are. I know how tough that is. There are some things that I would give up fantasy football for, but I mean it's a very short list. A very short list. So I saw you struggling there. I didn't know which way you were going to go, and I think at the end of it, you kind of you didn't go either way, but you shouldn't, and you don't have to. You can have
Thank
your
goodness.
bourbon. Are you drinking bourbon tomorrow, my friend?
Oh, absolutely.
All right,
Absolutely. I'll have
go
a
ahead.
fine pour of Buffalo Trace at kickoff with the Bills.
Look at that. That should be another segment we put in there. Drew's bourbon of the week. Tell us what you'll be drinking while you watch your Buffalo Bills. And here we go. We'll do a bonus. We'll do a bonus game on the way out. Drew, do your Buffalo Bills get the W tomorrow against the Super Bowl champs? You got to fly across the country. You got to play in LA. Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, Jalen Ramsey, Matt Stafford. Can the Bills pull it out?
Boys are built for this stage. They should have been there in February. I had a ticket booked already. I was ready to sleep at LAX if I had to. I was ready to sleep at LAX and walk the 3.8 miles from LAX over to SoFi and watch the Bills in their 5th Super Bowl. This is a long time coming. But yeah, a lot of respect for the Rams and their organization. I think the Bills are a complete team. I think they can hurt you in a number of different ways. So yeah, I think there's a good chance. I love Von Miller, the Von Miller edition. Hopefully he can give a little bit of insight. And yeah, I know not having Trey White's going to hurt us. So I'll figure out what to do with Cooper Kupp. A-Rob's a little bit of a wild card. But at the end of the day, I think we'll get after Stafford pretty good. And whether this is going to be a defensive struggle, I think we'll find a way. If it's a good old-fashioned shootout, I like our chances still. I think we learned from the end of last season, and I think we take some things away from that and get off to a fast start this year. So I am willing to take that bet for Buffalo. I don't even know what the line is. I remember what the total is. It's 52 points or whatever, but I forget who's favored. I want to say probably the Rams are favored by a point and a half, if I had to guess, but we'll see.
Well, you know what? Go to Bet US, look up that line. If you like that game, I think the Bills' 1-2 punch of Stephon Diggs and Isaiah McKenzie can just do it against the Rams. I do think the Bills win as well. It's a shame. I would have loved to have seen this game with Matt Stafford at 100%, but those are the breaks. I think if he was at 100%, I think I would have a harder time picking a winner in that game. But I think that's what it's going to come down to is Matt Stafford maybe not being 100%. So I also think the Bills are going to win that game. And next week, man.
Well, I love you, Josh.
Next week, we're talking about football, man. We're talking about
real football.
Real football, games that mean something, players doing things, points on our rosters. Just remember, everybody, make sure those lineups are set. Make sure you got all your guys where they're supposed to be. And you know what? Where we got to be? We got to be thanking everybody in the chat. Chat was great, man. Great questions. Drew had a real choice there between Bourbon and the Bills. Bourbon and all of his fantasy players. The Bills are part of fantasy, man. He gave me a weird look, but the Bills. Listen, we talked about how Isaiah McKenzie is better than Gabe Davis. I mean, that's all part of the fantasy landscape there. So, thanks to the chat, and remember, if you're watching, please hit subscribe, hit the thumbs up on this one. Leave a comment. We love seeing all that stuff. If you're doing a podcast thing, we get it Wednesday at 9:00. Doesn't work for everyone. Thank you for listening to the podcast. We appreciate you too. Just please subscribe if maybe you were referred by a friend to take a listen and hear us. And then rate and review. And then remember too, we're going to put all of our links in our descriptions, but head over to BetUS and they have a whole bunch of promos going on right now. I could list them all, but then this would be another hour and 16 minutes of a podcast. And as much as Drew would love 2 hours and about 32 minutes, I'm going to save him from that. So, but head over to BetUS. Remember to just use our link so that they know that we sent you guys. And on that note, Drew, we're out of here.
Late.